Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go microphoneless, so naked, so I appreciate a little bit extra attention. I'm just going to be talking for about 10, 15 minutes or so. I've been doing research here together with Michel Failing over here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as soon as we get this Drost effect done. But in the meantime, I'm really lucky because I get the esteemed privilege of saying it is really about time that we give an uproarious applause to Frank for putting this together, for us all being there. I mean, yeah, that applause can't go on long enough. And of course, we have to also thank everybody else in the NSSL, but Frank is the one that's really been working tirelessly, ceaselessly, focused on getting us all here together for what looks to be a really fantastic evening. So let's get talking about some psychology. That was the give it up slide. Let me introduce myself. I'll just introduce myself very quickly. My name is Adam Lobel. I'm a PhD here at Radboud. I work in Pedagogie, Gezinnig Gedrag. I come from Brooklyn, New York. That guy right down there. For anyone who's curious, that circular thing, that's Amsterdam, the A10 circle. I did my bachelor's in psychology at Brooklyn College, and I did a semester abroad at the UvA in 2008. And then after that, I really liked it in Amsterdam. I had a really good connection with people at the UvA, so I came back for my research master's. Also in psychology, social psychology was my specialization, and now I recently started my PhD that looks into the positive effects of video games on children and teenagers through the course of their development. And I do this work together with, right now I'm currently working with Michel Failing, and my supervisors are Professors Rutger Engels and Isabel Granite. So that's about me. I'm a social psychologist, and I'm very research-focused, but you may also be concerned, well, does he play video games? And the answer, of course, is yes. They're just some of my favorite games. I don't know if you guys see eye to eye on me. And that's pictures of me gaming. But this talk isn't about me. This talk is about you. And more specifically, I want to talk about what do the psychologists, what does the research say about your brain, you gamers, and your social skills. And I think the bigger question that I want to end off with is, what do we know about children, our coming children and the children of today, with what happens to them when they're playing video games? So there's a great little comic that Frank posted on the NSSL website some time ago that really illustrates a lot of where the research has been focused. And that is on these cognitive influences of video games. So how is it that it changes the way we perceive our everyday world and the way that we interact with it just purely from a cognitive perspective with our problem-solving skills and the way that we, just actually physically perceive the world. And this comic looks like this. You have a little boy, and his room is a complete mess. Why? Because he plays Tetris all day. And his mother comes in and says it's time to clean up the room, and now this Tetris finally pays off. Look at the beautiful room he managed to put together. And this is sort of the idea that the research has been playing with, that cognitively it's changing the way that we think. And what's really nice is, even similar to the research that we do, there's research out there that looks at what you guys are doing, playing Starcraft. And it looks to see how it's changing the way in which you attune to things in your environment, and how it is you might be improving in your multitasking skills and in being able to not become distracted. These are the types of questions that this research is asking, and what they do is they actually have surveys that they provide to you, which is what we do with our work as well, and then they use a replay file to capture a log of what you've been doing in the game. So just a little bit of a rundown of this type of research. They've been able to show that people that play adventure games, so a lot of stimulation going on screen, are really good at multitasking. Sorry. And the spatial cognition, in terms of spatial cognition, this research has been around for about 10 years as well, showing that surgeons who do microsurgeries make less errors and are even better when performing especially surgeries involving small cameras if they spent a lot of their life playing video games. So being engaged in this certain way is coming into becoming a tool for them later in life in a real way that is quite helpful. And on a maybe deeper level, we've also, researchers have also looked at the way in which problem-solving skills can become enhanced, how it is that video games, because of course, the fun of the game is always that challenge. You hit a wall, you don't know what to do, you have to rethink your strategy and come up with a new way of solving a problem. And a lot of research looks at that. So that's all really great, fine and good. That's all the cognitive stuff. But again, I said I'm a social psychologist. So all of these things are just a one-on-one interaction with one thing in your environment. What about the way that we interact with people? What about the way in which kids are growing up and dealing with emotional issues. Are video games doing anything for that? And those are the types of questions that I am really interested in. And what's nice is that the research in the past 5 years has moved away from this picture of the gamer. So this sort of stereotypical guy in the basement. And some researchers have already begun just showing the social side of video gaming, how there is this massive collaborative community that gets built up around solving problems together. So when you see papers like this, an analysis of socio-emotional and task communication in online multiplayer games, how people collaborate together. We even see papers that deal with what we're here today for, coming to a LAN event and seeing how social these gamers really are. And people are even being so bold, as I read this one paper, the pro-social effects of playing a violent video game online. I mean, this is sort of speaking to, I think, our intuition, which we thought of 10 years ago when we were playing hours of GoldenEye with our friends, where we thought, oh, I'm not wasting my time. We're collaborating. We're making real friendships here. And this is all very nice research, but it's also problematic from our perspective because it's quite static. They go to these people, they see what they're doing, where they're at in their life, they see this social picture at these LAN events, but they're not actually showing, are these video games having an effect on the people? So that's what we want to do. And it's nice, like I said, that we've moved away from this picture of the gamer and we have this zeker geen sociale isolatie. There's no social isolation when we look at the gamers. So we've moved away from that, but now we really need to think about how are there effects out there? And for that, I think that we need to turn to the children and analyze them over time through the course of their development. I'm going to ask you guys a question. So here you can show how social you are with some participation. What percentage of children in the States do you think play games on a regular basis?
Games in abroad.
Video games.
72.
72. 82. 90. It's over 90%. The estimates range between 91 and 97%, if you can believe that. So there's a tremendous amount of all these kids growing up gaming. That is what is happening. And in fact, these kids that are growing up, by the time they turn 21, they've spent 10,000 hours playing video games. It's tremendous. That's an army of gamers, if you think about that. And that really, really, really begs the question, what are they getting good at? Where are these 10,000 hours going to? If you play 10,000 hours of guitar, you know how good you are? So what exactly are they getting good at? And that's the question that we want to address with my PhD over the next 4 years. And what we seek to show is that, in fact, yeah, there's this social development happening around video games. Video games are the modern playground of the future. This is where, just like in the playgrounds that we are quite used to, this is where you also see children developing perspective taking, ethical reasoning, and collaborating in an environment where they're really developing the skills they need to deal with problems later on in their life. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of specific research questions before wrapping up in just a minute or two. So one of the things that I think is quite interesting and that I think is quite important is to take a developmental perspective when asking these questions. The video game market is so vast, and of course over the course of your development you change so many different times in so many different ways that it's of course important to contextualize each of these research questions and see what games are good for what skills at what different periods of your life. And one of the interesting questions that I think really needs to be addressed is, can video games be empowering our children? And what I mean by that is, does playing as a powerful avatar as a child make you become more assertive and self-efficacious? And another angle that one could approach this from, and that I find very interesting, is that I think what we've witnessed with this generation is perhaps for the first time, or I think it's extremely unique, that children are becoming masters at something that their parents are not. Normally, the parent is always the one to teach the child something. And now we have a situation where children can teach their parents something. And I think that's an incredibly empowering thing. And if we tap into that, we can really show ways in which children are becoming empowered for the future. Looking on later in life, I think that it's also interesting to investigate the ways in which video games for teenagers can be helpful for their identity exploration and as a social network for them to explore. What are we focusing on right now with our research in the lab at the moment is we're looking at becoming persistent in the face of failure. When you play a video game and you fail the level, you almost always feel that you just want to pick up and try again. And we want to see how does that generalize to the real world. Are people learning the lesson that I have to get up and try again? Or No. So what is it that we want to do over the next 4 years? Well, we want to look, we accept the fact that kids are gaming. That is happening. So we need to understand what is happening. And the questions we are asking, again, are socio-emotional. How are they changing in terms of the way they interact with people on an emotional level? And how is it that we are going to, the only way to really answer these questions is by studying them over time and getting a complete picture of them from their friends and their peers and their parents and themselves. But also to examine real behavior, something the research hasn't really done yet. Actually see what they are really doing in settings. And that brings me to how you guys can help, and how many of you already have that I have to thank you for. We have a study going on now in the lab, so if you found the talk interesting and you think you have something to say about the research, hit up this webpage, nsl.nl, Starcraft Science, and there you can find a link to our survey. And if you're here in the area in Nijmegen, you're more than welcome to join us in the lab, where we have people play one ladder match, we measure their heart rate, and then after the match we have them rate how stressful they think they were during the game. And the point is to see, are people who are better at detecting their own changes in stress also better at coping with real problems in the real world? Thank you.